Hola, hola, hola. Bueno, llega un momento muy especial de este Fireside Chat que armamos aquí en SAIAConf. Y es un momento muy especial porque es la única charla del día que es en inglés, sin traducción, sin prompting, sin nada. Así que, Derick, you're going to talk slowly for Argentinians, right? Tiene una novia brasilera. Is that right? Your girlfriend is Brazilian?
My girlfriend's Brazilian? I don't have a girlfriend.
No? But you know Brazilian?
I know Brazilian.
Okay. And then you...
Well, Portuguese.
Bueno, podemos llegar a negociar. You can explain in Portuguese if somebody doesn't understand. Bueno, la charla de él, decidimos darle una extensión especial y que justamente, dado este escenario, sea bien interactiva. Así que anímense a interactuar, anímense a preguntar. Vamos a correr estas sillas, así se ve bien la presentación. Él va a estar mostrando cómo construir un modelo de lenguaje en la plataforma de AWS. I'm going to take this one. Ahí está. Vamos a rediseñar. These two. Ven que hago todo, ¿no? Soy el stage manager, el microfonista, el presidente de SAIA. Bueno. Ready, set, go. All yours.
Okay, it's all me. Perfect. Well, thanks everybody for having me. Show of hands, who speaks English? Majority? Okay, cool. My name's Derick Thompson. I work for a specialist team at AWS called the AI/ML Frameworks. Has anybody heard of Anthropic by chance? They built the Claude model. Is everybody else a GPT user? What's the top model in Argentina? Just yell it out. ChatGPT? Okay, cool. Well, you can now get the open source version of one of OpenAI's models on AWS. But anyways, what we want to do today is spend a little bit of time going through some of the service lines that we provide to startups at AWS, but specifically answering the question, how do you build a large language model or a small language model, or maybe you're into computer vision and you need to build a visual language model, or you're into robotics and you're doing VLAs, architectures. So to start off, I just kind of want to get a sense of who's in the room. Who here is using an API to build a solution, whether it's for their company or for a startup? Like, are you using APIs from OpenAI, or maybe here us at, okay, so I got a spattering of people. Who here is not just calling an API, but is actually fine-tuning that API with their data from their company to try and get a more custom solution out of it? Hands? Got a few? Okay, cool. And this is the really tricky question. Who here is actually training or pre-training a foundation model for a very specific use case? Have a few? Alfonso? You want to come up and just tell us a little bit about what you're building? I think it would be cool for everybody to hear what's actually happening in Argentina. Alfonso is a former Amazonian as well. And so I asked if he could just share a little bit kind of about your story.
I will get them bored because I will repeat this after this call.
Give him 2 minutes.
In 2 minutes. So we are using models to understand how cells get old, cells in your body, and we are helping them to rejuvenate. We rejuvenate the cells to fight cancer, to improve longevity in a way. Okay, so we are helping some cell therapies to improve when you with a cancer, to double the amount of cells that are killed when you use our technology. How we use it? We have 8 different models. Our models use the way to understand how the cell gets older, the proteins and how they change, and then we find the small molecules that will bind with them to change them.
Okay, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing, brother. So when we think about what Alfonso and his team are doing, we consider them kind of a foundation model builder. So they're either building from scratch or they're fine-tuning an existing model to get something that's very bespoke. There's not very many of those in the world. My team at Amazon focuses on helping companies that are doing that. So it's the most advanced, thousands of GPUs doing large training runs. And so that's kind of like an aspirational or something maybe that you're going to try and do in the future. Most of the startups that we work with are doing fine tuning, which is using an existing model, and they're trying to train that with fine tune it with their own data. And then we also have some people that are doing performance stuff, but the majority of startups, and I think that's probably the case for many of you in the room, is you're exploring how Gen AI can transform, your business. And so today what I want to talk to you guys about is kind of the three things that we see a lot of startups facing. One of the most important things is, in this very fast-moving, paced environment, is the need to validate very quickly what your customers actually want. So at Amazon, we call it working backwards, but listening to the voice of the customer, taking it in, and then translating that into some sort of technology or solution. Show of hands, who here has actually solved a business problem with generative AI in their company today? You're both Amazonians, so of course. Anybody else actually solved something where they've replaced an existing technology or humans, for instance, with generative AI, and it's actually delivering the value that you need your customers to get? Anybody? A few? Okay. Well, you're not alone. Gen AI is very early. It's progressing really quickly. And I think one of the things that we'll be able to leave you with today is Amazon's spending a lot of time to build the technology to enable you guys to not have to do that on the infrastructure side. So you can focus on getting with your customers, building products that they love, and focus your time and energy there. And that kind of ties into this budget thing. So the most scarce resource in the startups we work with is raising money. I know that's a challenge in LATAM. It's a little bit easier in Silicon Valley, where we work most of the day. But really reducing the budget. So today I want you to kind of understand the cost economics of the different platforms we use at AWS and this control. So there's a lot of different technologies you can use, and we'll talk about a few of them from AWS. Some of them allow you to customize everything. A lot of them just allow you to make an API call as well. And so I think that's a big part of your decision-making framework, is to figure out what is really the right approach and how you want to build your Gen AI solutions. So I want to give you an overview. At AWS, we kind of have 3 tiers for Gen AI builders and model builders. At this top level here, we have what's called Amazon Bedrock. And that's basically our serverless option. It's the easiest, it's quick, it's APIs. There's a lot of clouds that offer that type of service, and it's something that you don't have to invest in infrastructure. And we'll take a little bit more of a look there. We also have SageMaker, which is a AI/ML platform we've built. It's 5-6 years old now. And it allows you to have more control, pick the models you want, and kind of build your own bespoke solution. But you're not totally tied to a specific approach like you would be with Bedrock. And then here at the bottom, we have our EC2, which many of you, if you're an enterprise or have built companies, that's our bespoke. You could do anything you want with it. And I think that's kind of the layer for the more advanced startups and companies that are really focused on optimizing performance and cost. So this is kind of the pond in which we'll swim for the next few minutes and kind of explore these different things. If you have a question about one of the things we're talking about, feel free to raise your hand, make it interactive. Hopefully this is a session you take something away from, and you'll actually be able to take some action. So let's take a look at this kind of stage 1 Amazon Bedrock. So if all you're trying to do is put a solution together like an MVP really quickly, which most startups, right? They have to get out of the building, talk to customers, and prove whether their customer is going to pay them that first dollar. Bedrock is really good for that. You can spin up whatever model you want, whether it's Amazon Titan or get one of the Anthropic models. Claude's a huge model that we service for Anthropic through Bedrock. They're one of our big partners. And really just let us manage the infrastructure, take a pay-as-you-go approach. I think there's some questions around cost, like we were talking about earlier. Bedrock is not about optimizing cost. Bedrock is about optimizing speed. Speed to actually build something that customers are going to buy that's going to turn you into a business instead of an idea. So if somebody tells you, hey, we need to go spend a bunch of money on EC2 or SageMaker or one of these other platforms first, and you don't have that solution, you haven't solved your customer job with Gen AI, come use Bedrock as a sandbox or an opportunity to kind of refine your thinking and do it very quickly. It's really valuable for that. I think one of the other things that's very interesting about Bedrock is we have a development team that's actually interested in listening to you guys as customers and making this platform simpler for you to use. So in talking with some of our team, which you'll meet the guys here afterwards, if you're struggling with a problem, you can feel free to share that with us. And my team at Frameworks works with our products teams, and we love to hear what it is that you don't want to be doing with your infrastructure, so you could get it in a serverless, lower cost. You don't have to make commitments. So that's kind of Bedrock in a nutshell. Anybody here using Bedrock? No hands? Okay. That's good feedback for us at AWS, right? Like, there's a ton of neoclouds out there that are offering services, and we're kind of still trying to figure out exactly what the best way is to deliver value. So if you have any ideas for us, we'd love to hear it. But yeah, if you're just trying to get started, I think Bedrock's probably your best shot. So let's talk about a case study. Has anybody heard of Save the Children? It's like a nonprofit that works with helping people get basically benefits from nonprofit and government organizations. And feel free to scan the QR code. But I think like one of the things we saw with them is what they wanted to do was basically speed up the process of analyzing documents. So if you're trying to serve a big enterprise, for instance, and automate their process, you may end up using a visual language model to do that. And so this company came in and they built essentially an AI chatbot really quickly, just using our APIs on Bedrock. Didn't have to set up any infrastructure, and literally in a matter of weeks, they had a fully operational, scaled, secure enterprise solution where they're able to serve hundreds of thousands of families coming through to fill out these forms to get benefits, and do that in an automated fashion. So I think that's a good example of a use case where if they're able to solve something with Gen AI, they're actually able to solve and accelerate their mission as a company. Is anybody in here in the nonprofit sector by chance? Yeah, back there? If you guys are startups and you're thinking about what type of company to build, like you haven't even figured that out yet, one of the insights that we've had is that public sector, enterprise, a lot of them are exploring solutions as a mandate, but in partnership with AWS, we're actually helping a lot of startups land opportunities and POCs with those enterprise companies. And you may know it or not, but Amazon actually pretty much has every customer in the entire world buying something from us just because of the infrastructure and S3 and some of our services. So as you think about kind of your journey and what the type of solution you're going to build, definitely keep in mind that your customers, if they're an enterprise or nonprofit, will probably need some sort of advanced security posture like we offer at AWS. So that's just a little bit about our platform, Bedrock. And so that may not be enough customization for you. And I think, at some point you're going to reach a moment where you want to have more control of what you're doing, and probably you take more of a bespoke role. And so that's where we talk about Amazon SageMaker. Is anybody in here tested out SageMaker yet? No? What about other tools like in LATAM? I know we've got some friends back here. You want to come up and talk to us a little bit about the infrastructure you guys are using? That'd be cool. And if anybody else has something that they're building that they'd like to kind of talk about and share, we'd love to hear about it and kind of contextualize what we're doing. So tell us a little bit about you and your startup.
At Sudus, we're building specialized AI systems, models, and workflows that outperform generalist models on specific tasks at 10 times lower the cost. And these systems are ready to be plugged into your system, be it either an OpenAI compatible API or automation tools like N8N, and they can run either on-premise or on any cloud provider on EC2s, in the case of AWS.
So did you guys start in your journey? How did you start? Did you start using APIs to test, or what was your sequence of kind of getting things going and learning what customers wanted?
Yeah, we did. We began using ChatGPT's API.
Okay.
We realized that this model was extremely good, but at the same time didn't have the performance that we wanted. So we started training our own models and realized that we didn't have the infrastructure to run them. So we ended up building the infrastructure and training more models and providing the AI systems that we as a company in Latin America needed. And now we're doing this everywhere in the region.
So are you guys using like PyTorch, like what notebooks, like what's your stack look like? Like how are you actually running your operation? Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, we're actually building the full stack. So we actually just don't use notebooks, but full scripts. And we just run the compute. In the case of AWS, we run the EC2, run our whole full stack, and turn this raw compute in forms of flops, floating point operations, into tokens. And we provide those tokens to our clients through an API.
Okay, cool. Thanks for sharing that, brother.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Very cool. So, show of hands, who understood anything that he said? His co-founder? Okay, cool. Well, it's good. It's good context, right? Because that's a lot, and they're building a custom stack to be able to offer, services essentially that abstract some of that complexity. So I think it's great to hear that that's happening here in Argentina. I'm super excited about that. But as you guys develop kind of your needs, it sounds like probably Bedrock, talking to the room, is the most effective solution for you guys to start. But one of the things, especially if you're looking for venture capital investment, our team at Frameworks work with AZ16, Kolsha Ventures, K2, a lot of the big SF VCs that are making bets on teams to basically go build models and develop solutions. And what we hear from them is that they're looking for kind of something that's a moat. So I don't know how that's interpreted in Spanish, but basically that means that it's not as easy to take your customers from you. And so if you're going to put VC money in, you want to protect that, right? And so what SageMaker does, and this is why we have a lot of customers on SageMaker, is it allows you to start to create your own models, right? So you're not just consuming an API, you're actually taking proprietary data, you're taking an open source model like Llama, Qwen, one that's got an open source license, and then it becomes your proprietary model that you can then serve to customers as your own API, which a lot of our customers end up making businesses around that. Does anybody in here have a really proprietary data set? Maybe you're at a company that's been collecting data, in the enterprise sector, or some startup is scraping online to find data. Is anybody like doing that activity? Yeah, you are? You want to come tell us about it? Come on. This is an important point, because at the end of the day, garbage in, garbage out with models. If you don't have data, then something like SageMaker doesn't make any sense. EC2 for infrastructure can, but you have to have the data. So tell us a little bit about the data that you've got and like the importance of that with models.
Okay.
And your name first.
Well, my name is Emmanuel.
Okay.
So I work in a car manufacturing company, and we collect data, basically scraping from websites like about the parts of the engine, of the clutches, so measurements and photos and lots of important data that we use to sell that part or to build.
Smart by training it, pre-training it again, or fine-tuning it on exactly what your data is. So that's kind of the concept, right? At the end of the day, if you want to create a defensible moat, if you want to create a startup or grow your business, or even as an enterprise defend the existing business you have, you should be really focused on getting data that will enable you to automate what you already do, and hopefully at some point, make your humans more efficient or make them monitors of the agents that you're ultimately going to build. So that's just kind of an overview of SageMaker. Next stage, beyond where many of you are, but still pretty cool technology. So let's do a little look at this case study here. Is anybody using IDEs or coding agents? Wow, you guys are on fire here in the front row. I love that. So Cosign is like maybe you've heard of Windsurf or Cursor. We have one at Amazon called Curo, arguably the best. Yeah, if you like building enterprise software and not just vibing, kind of riding the wave of building something that won't be able to ship. But they came to us with a lot of proprietary data, specifically code. And they're like, we want to improve our coding agent, Genie. And so we were able to take all of that data and using our platform, SageMaker, help them fine-tune their models to get even smarter at producing the specific type of code that their customers want. And for them, that really enabled faster testing, better release of features. And so, if you guys are thinking about your own systems and all these, the vibe coding solutions that you're making, though they're leveraging SageMaker and these types of processes to be able to produce the ability to let you essentially become an engineer. So it's a cool case study. Let's go ahead and buzz through one more case study that I think you'll find interesting. Has anybody used Perplexity AI? Yeah? What's everybody's take on Perplexity versus some of the other conversational solutions? Like GPT, by far the best. Like, what use case is somebody using Perplexity for? Shout it out. Yep. Okay. Okay. Interesting. Okay, like marketing, like deep research, pulling data back in. Okay, very cool. That's a good use case. These guys have millions of customers. Obviously, Chat does as well, and Claude. Is everybody familiar with the concept of inference? Does that ring a bell? A couple people in the back. So basically, for you guys to consume Perplexity or Claude or GPT, you basically have GPUs that are running, and they're spending some of the time on those GPUs training these models, but the majority of it is servicing them, so you can chat with it, right? And so companies like Perplexity have this very difficult task, which is to buy thousands of GPUs from Amazon and then make sure that they're utilized effectively. So you can imagine, when it's 9 a.m. in New York where they have a ton of customers, they need a lot more capacity to be able to serve those requests. But then at night, wherever their user base is global, they have concentrations, they want to be able to use that capacity to make the models smarter, which is the training process. So what we figured out at Amazon with a platform called HyperPod, which is one of the service lines that my team Framework supports, is how to automatically balance the incoming requests to essentially allow GPUs to use any available capacity to train, and the rest of it to service essentially infinitely scalably the inference or the API calls that are coming in. So as you guys are thinking about your startups and what you're doing, training may be something that you're doing initially, but the largest cost ultimately you're going to have, if you have any success, is going to be the inference costs, which is also GPU based. So kind of an interesting concept to dig into if you get into this. And these guys are the masters. Like, they're obviously a unicorn startup. So we kind of covered that. So really quickly, EC2. It's a lot of work. Has anybody here built, as an engineer, a solution on EC2? I know you guys have, but 1, 2. I mean, basically EC2 powers most companies, something for them, along with our storage S3. It's kind of our original compute platform. This is where we service our GPUs as well for AI use cases like training and inference. Not recommended if you're going right out of the gate to build something. This is where you optimize cost and performance and try and eke out essentially millions of dollars of savings as an AI startup. But you definitely have a better approach if you're going through Bedrock and then SageMaker before you come here. We love to sell this. It's less managed. You can get whatever you want, but it's definitely a lot more work. So just put it in your memory as something that you can use. I will say though, and Clario is a good example, it's not a one-size-fits-all, right? So you may start out with Bedrock, and it's great for doing something like document processing. Then you may want to add EC2 to do something very specific around your data pipelines. So sometimes you have to think about piecing it together with different services, and that's what we call it at Amazon. Everything we build is a building block. So some of these building blocks that we talked about today could be part of your generative AI story as you're building out your company, or transforming it, from internally if you're an enterprise. And that's what we saw with Clario. They really used a variety of different services like text extract, worked on optimizing their models. They actually use HyperPod as well to do that. And at the end of the day, what are they really doing? They're driving down cost and they're speeding up their time to deliver more accurate models, which ultimately improve business outcomes, for their customers. So that's a quick overview. I do want to leave you with this framework, and maybe you take a picture of this if you're looking at our services and thinking about your own journey. But it's pretty clear, based on team size sometimes. It's one criteria, one characteristic you can think about for what service line you would pick. If it's just you, definitely Bedrock is going to be the best way to go. SageMaker, as you kind of increase and have ML ops, headcount, more people that need to share resources, that starts to make that simpler. And then obviously EC2 is bespoke. But what we've seen is the cost of services, when they start to reach that kind of like 10, 100 or above, you start to think more about how you can optimize, what you're doing. So that's where EC2 ultimately comes in. So I'll leave you with this. There's a lot of pitfalls in building generative AI solutions. There's a lot of places to make money, hopefully, but a lot of places to lose money on infrastructure if you're not managing it correctly. And that's not something that we want. We want to make sure you guys are optimizing your workloads and everything you're doing. So number one, don't over-engineer too early. And if you're a CTO or an engineer, I've been guilty of this. It feels cool to build something that's really sleek, and then customers don't want to buy that, and then you have to refactor everything you've done to accommodate what they actually want to do. Engineering should be saved for when you actually know what you're going to build and scale. If you can use an API through Bedrock or GPT or whatever you're using, that's the most efficient way to make sure you're building something simple. Cost monitoring, we have a thing called CloudWatch. If you're using AWS, keep it on. There's a lot of hidden services that make everything run, and you don't want a surprise moment where you're like, oh, I was just playing around with SageMaker and I turned on Studio. And then I came back 6 months later and it was still running. And why is there a huge Amazon bill in my account? So make sure you're monitoring cost. Fit is really important. It may be cool to use the largest language model, but we talked about small language models a little bit. If you can use a 400 million parameter fine-tuned Quen, let's say, and you have a very specific use case like analyzing legal docs or doing OCR, and there's a couple of LATAM startups doing this actually. One's named Dharma, another one's called Forex. They're out of Brazil. They're getting way better performance out of that than trying to use GPT or Anthropic or even a large language model. Very specific, small, fine-tuned tasks on small language models. So really test and validate. If that's good enough for you, go with the smaller model. And then last, I really think the data piece, which we talked about a little bit here, that's the key. None of this really makes sense if you don't have any data. Go with the APIs. But maybe you go back to your company tonight or your startup team, and you're like, what public data sets could we scrape to give ourselves an unfair advantage to create a fine-tuned model that provides a better outcome than we can get through one of the main APIs? And if you're finding that you're getting signal around data that could be valuable for you, then there's this whole thing called synthetic data generation that a lot of the startups are doing, where they take data and then they use AI to augment that data into a bigger data set to get better outcomes with their models. So there's a lot of technical workflows, I think, in all of this, but at the end of the day, hopefully this gave you kind of a little bit of an idea on what we can do at Amazon. And I'd like to invite my colleagues up, if you don't mind, to tell you a little bit about what Argentina is doing on the startup front and some of the things that we have to offer you guys. So here you go.
Can I switch to Spanish? Is that okay?
Please.
Gracias. Buenísimo. Bueno, un poquito en español. No estamos cansados ni nada. Súper breve. Gracias, Derick. Thank you, Derick, for coming here. Mi nombre es Tomás, trabajo en AWS con Derick, pero aquí basado en Argentina, contribuyendo con las startups. Gabriel también de nuestro equipo. Y solamente para dejar tal vez dos mensajes adicionales de todo esto súper valioso que estábamos viendo. Sabemos que en Argentina hay muchísimo talento y abunda talento para construir todo este tipo de soluciones, tanto de índole académico, empresarial, en startups, en gobiernos y demás. Mucho de todo esto es lo que venimos viendo durante el día de hoy en este evento súper interesante que organizó la gente de SAIA. Y sabiendo que hay todo este talento aquí disponible, nosotros creo que hacemos y aportamos nuestro granito de arena apoyando con todo lo que tiene que ver con los recursos de infraestructura digital, recursos financieros, el apoyo técnico. Cuenten con nosotros para todo eso. Venimos trabajando hace ya varios años con startups súper interesantes y un montón de otros actores del ecosistema para llevar esto a la práctica, hacerlo realidad y que ocurra aquí en Argentina. Así que nada, cuenten con nosotros y aquí estamos también si tienen ganas de charlar y seguir comentándonos también un poco más cómo fueron pasando todos aquí adelante y contarnos de los proyectos en los que están, a ver cómo nosotros también podamos contribuir. No sé, Gaby, si querés agregar algo más.
No, creo que dijeron todo. Lo único es que nosotros los entendemos, a muchos de ustedes están emprendiendo, somos emprendedores también, tenemos nuestro pasado de emprendedor y un poco lo atractivo, ¿no? que tiene como AWS, como equipo y como compañía es queremos ayudar a que ustedes puedan hacer las cosas. Entonces no importa si no tienen un empleado, son ustedes, tienen 100 empleados o 1000, acérquense y digan, che, mira, tengo esto. ¿Me pueden ayudar? O sea, la verdad es que yo como emprendedor, cuando empecé con AWS, a trabajar en AWS, me pareció increíble, en el sentido de, che, si vení, te vamos a dar crédito, te vamos a hacer esto, lo otro, genial, pero tenemos como la cultura de poder darles una mano. Así que creo que no es mucho más lo que vos dijiste, Tommy. Derick, thanks so much, man. Y chicos, chicas, gracias por todo, por el tiempo y esperemos poder ayudarlos. ¿Alguna pregunta? ¿No?
Thank you very much. I will ask in English for everybody. I work in computable governance methodologies, not technical devices, but methodologies. And I would like to ask you, when you mentioned the small language models that probably some institutions need to run then in local environments in order to keep safety and extreme security because of their mission. Let's speak about defense or etc. The question is, which is your advice to design and build and implement safe, secure solutions based in small language models by design?
It's a great question. So I don't know if everybody heard, is asking about needing high security for small language model development. Thankfully, Amazon has one of the most secure clouds, arguably, in the world. We support a lot of sovereign clouds, which are basically governments that need to keep data inside a very specific area. So hyper-local servers, we have solutions for that. And I think that's really the answer to your question. You have to have the entire infrastructure be secured and set up for your security protocols. There's a few clouds that can do that. We're one of them. And we have specialized teams that come in and essentially design that for you if you're large enough. Or we do have sovereign clouds that are available for government. I'm not sure what that is in Argentina. Do you guys know if we have a sovereign cloud here for the government? So here specifically, if it's for the government or private sector needing that security, that'd be something that we could sit down and talk about and help design you.
Okay, thank you. And second question is, from the technical point of view, if there's a kind of extremely critical infrastructure in which the data cannot flow outside a kind of very defined topology and environment, are there solutions in which one can run them just in the intranet with the sufficient model capacity in order to solve the computational challenges that are needed?
That's a great question. So you're kind of asking about the physical location of the actual hardware. We do have solutions for that, where we actually bring our entire like stack, like a mini data center on-prem that's connected to the cloud, so you have access to cloud services, and it creates this kind of like on-prem cloud solution with our customers. So I'm sure we'd be happy to walk you through those specifics. And we have specialist teams that do just that. So that's kind of how it works with Amazon. Depending on what you need to do, we bring in a group of specialists that have done it before, and we sit down and design a bespoke solution, specifically for your needs. Yep. Thanks for those questions. Those are great. Any other questions?
Última porque ya estamos con el tiempo.
Okay, great. Thanks, guys. Have a great night.